There we are. Okay, we're live. Welcome to LASMNY's Town Hall on Oneida County and Herkimer County Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault. With me today is Cindy and Stephanie. Stephanie is a staff attorney and Cindy is one of our managing attorneys here, both located in our Utica office on 120 Bleecker Street in downtown Utica. And we're going to talk about, obviously, domestic violence and sexual assault, which has been kind of on the rise in the area. And we're going to talk about it pertaining to both counties and what survivors can do, or if anyone who knows a person that's in a situation that they can hopefully get this information and share it with folks. I should say, if at any point you want to reach out to LASMNY, Legal Aid Society of Mid New York, our phone number is 877-777-6152. That's 877-777-6152, and I'll be sharing that a lot, as well as lasmny.org, where you can apply for our online intake system. So let's start with just some background. Go ahead, Cindy, just introduce yourself, talk about your background at LASMNY, your legal experience, and then Stephanie as well.
Okay, thank you very much. This is Cindy Domingue-Hendrickson. I'm the Director of Litigation for LASMNY, and I've been with LASMNY actually since 2000, so about 20 years now. Before that, I was an attorney with Legal Aid in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So I've practiced in a number of different areas, but more recently I've been doing more domestic violence work over the past 2 years or so.
Okay. And Stephanie?
I have been with LASMNY for about 1.5 years now, so not quite the wealth of knowledge that Cindy is, but I've been practicing domestic violence work here since I began, and my background is for the most part in nonprofit public service work, and I am also an upstate New York native.
Okay, excellent. So in both of your experiences in the past year, where obviously living in unique times, have you seen a increase in domestic violence and sexual assault cases? And if so, what do you think are some of the factors possibly leading to that?
Okay, want me to start, Stephanie?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, what we're hearing in statistics, there seems to be at least a 25% uptick in calls to hotlines during this time of COVID. Within our office, initially things intake dropped off for a while. I think that was because the courts were virtually closed for a couple of months back in March, April, and May. So the word got out pretty quickly that the courts were closed, and I think people thought there was nothing they could do. But as the courts have reopened, then our cases started coming in again. And the existing clients we had, a lot of them were calling back with new problems. And sometimes you'd resolve one problem, and then maybe a month later they're calling back and there's been another incident. So yes, it's definitely been on the rise.
Alex, I'm going to speak to why we're seeing things on the rise. So, I mean, it's really a combination of factors. First and foremost, this is a really stressful time, obviously. And so we're seeing heightened emotions. We're seeing people much more frustrated and acting on that frustration. And then you add into that the fact that people are either laid off and not working or are working from home. And so everyone is at home during the day, not having anywhere to go because places are closed. On top of that, especially at the very beginning of COVID and when quarantine began and stay-at-home orders went in place, shelters around New York State were closing down, other housing resources were closing down. And so for many DV victims, that meant not having somewhere to go. Then you add on to that resource providers shutting down. We did not completely shut down, but we, for some time, were not having clients in the office. We were very overloaded with work. And I know our partner DV organizations had similar experiences. And so when you combine people being confined to their homes on top of not being able to access the resources that they typically would, that's sort of what creates this atmosphere of DV being increased, as Cindy said, about 25%.
Okay. As a person that's, not as versed in the courts, why does this, and we as legal aid provide legal services, free civil legal services, why are these cases not necessarily being handled through criminal court? Or obviously they may be handled in criminal court as well. What do the civil courts have to do with it, and what can a person do in the civil courts to protect themselves?
Yeah, so I will say we do have a lot of cases that are going through both court systems, but obviously as legal aid, we don't do criminal representation. We do civil court representation. So DV cases can end up both in criminal courts, and they can end up in family court, which is where Cindy and I are primarily practicing. The difference is, there's a few differences and reasons why it would be in one versus the other. First and foremost, getting an order of protection requires going to the police and making a report. If you want the criminal order of protection, many DV victims have reasonable fears of going to police, of making those reports. And what I will add is, while we don't do criminal representation, we can do criminal accompaniment, and that is something that Cindy and I have both done. I've done it a handful of times during COVID. We are a resource for people to go with them and make those reports. Another thing is, it's a much higher burden in criminal court. People who watch crime TV likely know that the standard in a criminal court is beyond a reasonable doubt. And the nature of domestic violence is that because of the control, because of the isolation, it's very difficult to document abuse. And so it can be very difficult to meet that burden in a criminal court, as opposed to family court, which is a civil court, which has a lower burden. And additionally, in family court, orders of protection are limited to certain relationships. The statutory language is intimate relationships. That typically means close direct relatives or romantic partners, former romantic partners. And family court really has an understanding of those intimate relationships because it's what they deal with on a daily basis, as opposed to criminal courts that are covering all aspects of criminal acts and the people involved in those. And so when it comes to domestic violence occurring in an intimate relationship, family court is a route that people can take that I think many people may not know that that's an option that they have. So,
Cindy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, the third route that people don't often think about is Supreme Court in a divorce. So if you're in a divorce, you can get an order of protection through Supreme Court. Not typical. People usually go to one of the other, the criminal court and or the family court first. But sometimes that does happen in a divorce.
Okay. You said something, criminal accompaniment, and what, just define that a little bit more. What do you mean by that, Stephanie?
Yeah, so essentially accompanying people to the criminal aspects of their domestic violence cases. So whether it be going with them to report to the police, which Cindy and I have both done, or both of us as well have gone with clients to criminal appearances, to town court or county court, wherever it may be, just so they have an extra resource there, an extra person who understands the process that they're going through. And while we can't represent them, we can communicate with DAs, which we do. We can communicate with them, help explain the process to them, and sort of just be there as it's occurring. Okay.
You also touched on something interesting, and I think it kind of segues to the next question is, if somebody's in this situation, how can they document? How can they show evidence that they're being abused safely, that they feel is safe, where they can't necessarily be tracked? I'm sure you get that question.
Yes. Cindy, do you want me to take this one, or do you want to?
I can start, just chime in because we both do a lot of this. Yeah, documenting can be very important, as Stephanie had said, especially in the criminal process. it can be tough to document a situation where you've got basically two people at home and no witnesses to the things that are going on. So there's a lot of different things we recommend. Obviously, number one is if you're hurt or injured, seek medical help, assuming it's safe for you to do so. I know there are a lot of situations where it may not be safe to do certain things because the abuser is in control of the situation. And if you feel that something is putting you at risk, you need to just think about that. If there's a way to contact your local domestic violence program, the YWCA of the Mohawk Valley serves Oneida County. They also serve Herkimer County with rape crisis. And then Herkimer Catholic Charities serves Herkimer County. If there's a safe way to contact those programs, they can help you make a safety plan that will let you know what you can do safely and prepare for any problems with the abuser. So I just want to say that out front, because sometimes the things I might recommend might be something that a person might feel might not make them safe. So just keep that in mind. But the first thing would be, to get medical attention if you need it and document it. I know I had a case where that made the whole criminal case, that the person had gone to the doctor and they could literally see the prints of the hands around the person's throat were still there, the red marks, and that was documented. And that was pretty much an open and shut criminal case to get an order of protection and to hold the abuser accountable. So medical attention is real important. If you can't get medical attention, take pictures. Most everybody has a cell phone now. Take pictures of any bruises or cuts. Try to make sure that you have a date on the picture if you can. Keeping a journal is also very helpful. That can also be extremely helpful in a stalking case where you're apart from them, but they keep bothering you in some way. They're calling you or texting you or driving by your house. Either have a journal or a calendar where on every date you put what happened, who saw it, who was there, and what happened and what people said. If you can remember exactly what they said, that's helpful. And then later on, if you have to go to court, you can refer to that because nobody can remember everything that happened over the last couple of months. So that's really helpful. Stephanie, you have any other thoughts about documenting?
Yeah, adding on to what Cindy said earlier is it is a common trait of abusers to control and isolate. And I can't tell you how many times we've had clients come to us saying that their phone or their computer were wiped and they lost the texts they had saved or the photographs that they had saved. And so I always recommend saving those things to an external source, whether that be like the cloud or in your email or with a third party who you trust. Once clients come to us, I always say, send me what you have so that I can have it saved in the event that something like that happens. And, there's so many rules towards what can and can't be used in court, and we by no means expect our clients to learn those rules. So I always tell my clients, send me everything you have. A lot of them sometimes will feel bad about blowing up my email because they have so many texts that they want me to read or so many photos that they took. But I would rather have more than I need and go through it and figure out what I can use and what I can't use than not have anything at all. And so I know what comes with being a DV victim is sort of feeling like a burden, but we are not bothered by getting a lot of evidence because it truly does help us. And so I want people to know that they shouldn't feel like they are a burden in doing that, in keeping a large stock of evidence and sort of putting it all on us.
Yes, and definitely save any text, phone messages, anything like that. If you save them on your phone, we have ways of getting them off the phone so that we can present them in court. Some people, I have a case recently where somebody installed a security camera outside their home, and we had footage. This person was stalking them, and we have footage of exactly what they did, and it's time and date stamped, and that's something that can be used in court. So if you can afford to do that, I know that some of the DV programs have gotten funding for security systems. If there's a person that has a severe case and needs that help, that's something you might be able to do.
Okay. We touched a little bit about the courts. It's family court. But what specifically can family court do to create a boundary between the abuser and the victim? And I think we touched a little bit on orders of protection. I know there's different types of orders of protection. Can you just expand on that, the courts and the order of protection?
Okay. Well, both the criminal court and the family court and the Supreme Court, which Supreme Court handles divorces. So that's sort of a third place that people may go, but it's not as common to get them there, as I said before. But what any of those courts can do is enter an order of protection. And there's two types of orders of protection. The first is called the stay away order. The stay away, make sure the person cannot come near you. They can't come to your home. They can't come to your job or your school. They may even be ordered to stay away from your pets. That's a relatively new thing that's come about in the law, which is very helpful because, sometimes pets are also the victims of the abuse. The second type of order is called the refrain from order. The refrain from order says that you can still be around the person, but you can't stalk them, harass them, assault them, or do any other of those types of violent family offenses that would harm somebody. So if you have a stay away order, the refrain from is also included. But some people just get the refrain from. The refrain from is more common if you have children. Sometimes if you have children together and you want to still be able to co-parent, you might get the refrain from. So in other words, you can pick the children up, but you better not be yelling or cursing or hitting me or doing any of those things to me. However, you can get a stay away order where there's sort of what they call a carve out, where you have to stay away from me, but it's okay for you to pick up the children on Wednesdays and we'll meet in front of the police station. So that's the only time you're allowed to be around me, is when you pick up the child at the police station. I would like to do a shout out to UPD. Utica Police Department has what's called a safe exchange program. You can actually go at any time. I think it's 24/7, and you can make your exchange there at UPD. There's always an officer on duty. You don't have to sign up or anything. You can just show up, and it's been a great place for even some of our clients from Herkimer have been exchanging children there. But basically, that order of protection means that the court has told this person to stop doing certain things, and if that person violates the order, they can be held accountable by the court. So that's the protection that you can get from the courts.
How quickly can an order of protection happen once they meet with you and they decide that this is an avenue they want to pursue? About what's the ballpark to get an order?
Literally the same day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Although I will say during the pandemic, for the first couple of months, it was kind of dicey because the courts were really shut down and it was sort of hard for people to literally get in the door. But since then, the courts have opened up for filings. So there's no problem now filing. Literally within the same day, you're supposed to be able to see a judge. And if your circumstances warrant it, you should be able to get the order the same day.
And I'll add that, like Cindy's saying, it does depend on the circumstances, and you can get an order of protection immediately that day if the judge feels that the situation that you have described warrants getting one that day. However, unfortunately, some levels of domestic violence are given more weight than other forms of domestic violence. And so it can happen that we file this petition, but an order is not issued that day, and we're given a court date, which can be a week from then, it can be 3 weeks from then, it could be 5 or 6 weeks from then. And at that point, have to appear in front of the court and make our case for why an order should be issued. And so unfortunately, it does come down to the specifics of the situation to determine whether an order is going to be issued that day or not.
And that's why it's helpful to seek out services from the Y or Herkimer Catholic Charities, depending on what county you're in, because DV Advocate can help you fill out the papers and make sure that everything gets in the papers that the judge needs to see to make that decision. So, if you leave some things out, it might result in the judge deciding, well, I don't think there's really enough here to grant an order of protection now, but we'll set a hearing for later, and then we'll see at that date. So with an advocate's help to fill it out, you're much more likely to get the immediate order.
Okay. And the YWCA and Catholic Charities of Herkimer County are shelters. And so talk to a little bit about the relationship that Legal Aid has with both of those organizations and how we work in concert with them.
So shelters are one aspect of these programs. They provide really a whole range of services, the domestic violence shelters being one of those. So the way our program works, and we cover various domestic violence grants, and some of them are grants that are partnered with these organizations, so that the majority of our family court clients are being referred from these organizations. What's really great and what I really value about working with these programs is that they can provide a whole level of services that we cannot, which is great because it truly allows us to provide a client-centered approach when it comes to assisting the clients that come to us. So obviously we provide legal services, and working with Catholic Charities and working with YWCA, they can provide counseling, they can provide housing assistance, whether that be the shelter or it be helping people find apartments in their area. I know they assist in applying for public assistance. They really have a whole book of resources that we do not. And so what's great about working with them is when a client comes to me, I really like to have the DV advocate who referred them to be there so that we can cover all the bases. And as attorneys, we don't necessarily have counseling training or social work training, and to be able to work with an advocate who does have that training allows us to better represent the client and better serve them. And not only are they support for the clients, but they truly are support for us as well. And I know that I feel much better about these services that are being given to the client when we have those DV advocates who can provide those additional resources. And also, they're really great resources for domestic violence in general. This is what they do day in and day out, and they see much more of the situation than we do, and they just provide a level of knowledge and history with those issues.
Yeah, and they also have 24/7 hotlines available. So in both counties, there's a hotline available that you should reach out to at any time if you feel you need to. They just generally recommend, if you're in an immediate emergency, that you call 911 and call the police. But you can also reach out to the hotline at any time.
And I do have, actually, Alex, I have the hotline numbers.
Okay, good. I was looking it up.
Yeah, this would be a good moment to share them. So for Oneida County, it's the YWCA that we work with, and their hotline number is 315-797-7740. And then for Herkimer County, it's through Catholic Charities, and their hotline number is 315-866-0458.
Awesome. I wanted to take a step back because Cindy, you mentioned divorces go through Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. Occasionally, a client might go to both of you and say, "I want a divorce. I really need a divorce." And so, after maybe some boundaries are created with the order of protection and there's some independence created, what's the next step? How does a client go through the divorce process?
Okay, well, there's a couple of ways clients can come to us. Certainly, you can call our main hotline number, our legal helpline number, which again, as Alex said, was 877-777-6152, and you can go that way. You can also apply for our help online. You can go to www.lasmny.org. That's LASMNY.org. But a lot of times we get clients directly referred. If you're getting services through the Y or through Herkimer Catholic Charities, they can directly refer you to us for services with a divorce. And the first thing we do is help you fill out a questionnaire so we know everything that's involved. We know if there's custody issues, child support, spousal support, what kind of property issues there might be. Once we're done with that, we file initial papers with the court, initial complaint, serve the opposing party, and then we go through there. We go from there and represent the client throughout the proceedings, and to the point where you get a final judgment of divorce. And we do find there actually have been studies done on this, that getting a divorce and finalizing all that stuff makes a huge difference in the amount of domestic violence. It can really be something that leads to financial independence for the victim, and really can shape the relationship for the future and make things better. So we're it's a very important service that we provide there.
And to add on to what Cindy said, divorces in New York State, divorces in general, but divorces in New York State are by no means a quick process. No. And I think that many people don't understand that going into it. And so I always try to be upfront about the fact that it's going to be long. It could be 6 months to a year. It could be longer than a year. And so people need to know going into it. And that should not hinder anyone from wanting to get a divorce, but it is something to be aware of going into it. And another, I guess, common misconception of divorce is that someone who wants a divorce can be prevented from getting one if their spouse doesn't want it. And that is not the case. It can certainly will delay the case and delay the process, but just because your spouse does not want to get a divorce and will not agree to it does not mean that you are going to be prevented from getting a divorce. And so that's another thing that I wouldn't want to prevent people from coming to us for help, or in general going through the divorce process.
One thing we're always keenly aware of, though, is often when you try to seek some kind of relief from the courts, that can be the time at which the abuser gets the most violent, because they're in a situation where you're leaving them, and that can really heighten the violence. So we have to sometimes, or actually a lot of the time, do some very careful planning. We've had cases where the client even needed to go into a shelter until the papers were served and things calmed down a little bit, so we could make sure that they were going to be safe. Or if they didn't want to take that drastic step, maybe stay with a relative for a while, or just really go through a whole safety plan where we go through all aspects of, like, changing the locks to your house. Should you have a security system? What happens if the abuser stops by the house? How can you signal a friend or a coworker that you're in trouble? So, like, there's a whole plan that needs to be put in place just to make sure that people are safe when doing that process.
Okay. I wanted to touch on what LASMNY can do for possible college students who might have been sexually assaulted or abused. What can LASMNY do in that type of situation?
Yes, that's a relatively new project that we've had going for the past couple of years through a grant from the United States Department of Justice. And what we've been doing is trying to get the word out to college campuses that survivors of campus sexual assault could reach out to us for help. And Alex, you probably have do you have the hotline number?
The warm line, I do. Hold on.
We call it a warm line because it's basically available during business hours, but it's available Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And Alex will get us the number. And basically what we can do, we can help support the survivor in a lot of ways. Some of the services we could provide, for example, if the survivor maybe made a complaint to the college and there's going to be a campus hearing on whether the perpetrator should be held accountable in some way, for example, whether the perpetrator might be moved out of the same housing or suspended or even expelled. You don't have to go through that process alone. If you call us, we could possibly represent you in those proceedings. Another thing we can do, a lot of housing issues. Suppose maybe you're living in the community and you need to break your lease because this person is coming around, threatening you, or maybe it's somebody you actually live with. We might be able to help you with your landlord-tenant situation. Student loans are a big issue. Sometimes people are so traumatized by the sexual assault on campus that they end up dropping out of school. They may have student loans then that they need to deal with, or they may need help getting re-enrolled in school. Access to health benefits may be another thing. You don't have a way to get health care that you need. So there's many different things we could do for survivors. We have also gone to the local courts for some folks. We've gone to family court to get orders of protection. We can, as Stephanie said, we can accompany people to make a report to the police or maybe to go to a criminal court hearing. Those are all really, traumatizing things for a survivor. It could take very little to make you decide not to go forward with it, because it's a very scary process and people are suffering from trauma. So it's hard. So we try to basically be there with you every step of the way. And for all of these cases, whether you're a college student or not a college student, the victim / survivor is always in the driver's seat. They tell us what they want to do. We never tell them. We will advise people of what their options are, but they're always in control because control was taken away from them. So we want to give them that control to make their own decisions. And that could be deciding not to do anything, but that's up to them.
The sexual assault warm line for legal aid is 1-833-400 Yana, or you are not alone, and that is 9262. So 833-400-9262, and it's available Monday through Friday.
And
yep.
9 to 5. And 9 to 5. Everything that you tell us is confidential, and we will not take any action without your approval and permission. So just to reassure people, when you call, nobody's going to know unless you want us to take some action.
And Alex, I just wanted to add on to something that Cindy said, that sometimes the choice that a DV victim may choose to make is to not do anything. And I think that choice can deter people from seeking out our services in the future for fear of being sort of ostracized for having not pursued a course of action. I just want to sort of make it public knowledge. Statistically, a victim goes back to their abuser about 7 times before finally leaving that relationship. And so I want to make it clear that if you were to come to us for help, decided not to pursue a case, and return to your abuser, that does not mean that we're going to refuse to help you in the future, because we understand that process and that pattern. And certainly returning to the situation or not wanting to take legal action at one point in the past does not mean that we are going to cut you off in the future.
And often survivors have legitimate safety reasons for everything that they do. They know the situation best because they've lived in it, and they know what's the safest for them to do at that particular time. And again, that's why we really do encourage people to work with the DV programs, because safety is, I always say with these cases, safety first. Make sure you're safe before you take any action. And the Y and Herkimer Catholic Charities are the folks that really can help you with a safety plan, which is, I think, of anything any of us do, that's the most important thing, is just keeping people safe. A divorce can wait, your safety can't.
Correct.
That's wise.
Yeah.
My final question for both of you is there anything in terms of the courts that you want to update people on? And I know that we do a legal aid internally does a family law and DV work group weekly. So if there's anything out of that your colleagues are discussing that's kind of top of mind that we do across the region, is there anything coming out of that you guys want to also pass along to the public?
Well, we were just talking about virtual trials. So if the courts, we are very fortunate. I was just on a call with DV advocates. A lot of them were downstate, and the courts, even for virtual hearings, are pretty much closed. So, people that have urgent needs, like say maybe a parent won't return a child from a custody visit, they can't even get in to file anything to the court. So we're very fortunate upstate that our judges have adapted very, very well to virtual hearings. So our courts are open for filings. We will have hearings, but they're virtual. We just heard from the courts that in-person hearings are being shut down unless it's a real emergency. So it's kind of unusual, but you're going to be on the video or maybe just on the phone, which sometimes can be good for DV survivors, that they don't have to actually see the abuser when they go to the hearing. They could just be on the phone. That's actually been kind of an upside of it. But yeah, the judge will be on a video, and we will be on the video, and so that's just something that the public has to kind of get used to. It's a little, but I found that it's worked very well. The only problem is, we're getting into actual trials by video, and that's going to be challenging. I'll let Stephanie talk about it.
Yeah, I was actually giving Cindy a rundown of the trial that I've had virtually as of late, and what we're seeing is the process is a little bit different in each county. Legal aid, we do have a number of attorneys who are covering all of our counties, and so we've certainly got our bases covered, and we're all learning the process together. But again, no one should be afraid to seek legal services at this point in time, just because it's this whole new system. We're making it work. It is new for everybody, but we are having trials, we are having appearances, we are getting to see judges and present our cases. And so it's a whole new world, but we're getting through it.
Yeah, and like I said, there's some actual upsides to it that we might not have thought before. I've had clients that were terrified to come into a courtroom and face the perpetrator, and they could be on the phone and not even have to see them.
Right.
That's been a huge help. Now, when you go to trial, that may be different, but if you're going to be testifying, that's different. But to have all that time where you don't have to actually see the person has been very helpful.
Okay, excellent. If you or someone you know is interested in getting legal services, counsel, and advice in domestic violence and sexual assault, and exploring the options in family court, please do call our intake, which is 877-777-6152. That's 877-777-6152, or go to LASMNY.org and click the intake button. And our offices are located on 120 Bleecker Street in downtown Utica. Thank you both, Cindy and Stephanie. Did I miss anything?
Thank you. Not that I can think of.
Okay, excellent. And thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.